And as he mentioned, the house that we had rented there in Isla de Mozambique, it was a big house. It was a little bit of a spooky house in a way.
Yeah, it was like a spooky mansion. I would carry that. And depending how the tide was at the time, it was or very easy or very difficult. I'm a small guy.
It's like the entire morning.
Yeah, I was young, I guess my cardio, so my bottle would last.
I remember that the team members were mad at you. Because hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we have a very special episode because we will talk about how is life in an expedition. But that is not what makes it special. Today I have with me one of my team members that has been in many expeditions with me in Mozambique, in Indonesia. He's a very talented diver, an archaeological draftsman, very good apneist, and he has evolved into concept artist for one of the most important video games we all know and have enjoyed. So let's dive into it. What I didn't say in my introduction of the video is that this very talented team member, it happens to be my son. So welcome, Alex. Nice to have you here.
Hey, Dad. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm very happy, first, to have a team member that has been through so many things in the expedition life, but on top of it, that you're my son.
Right.
And working with a family is sometimes difficult, but most of it is pleasure. At least that's how we have lived, right?
Yeah, I always heard working with family can be complicated, but my experience, it really was one of the most formative and really pleasant experience. At least in our case, it was seamless. It was very...
You did like it?
Yeah. And since I was a kid, I always heard about your work. I was obsessed with boats and divers and fishing, spearfishing, because that was all I saw every time I went to visit your work. For me, it was the coolest thing in the world. And then grew up showing people pictures of you spearfishing with a big barracuda and stuff like that. And so my dream was to do that. And yeah. At the age of probably, I think I was 20, it was a very young.
You were very young, and I was trying to give him the chance to experience this of what he has mentioned, but on top of it to exploit a bit because he has always been very talented in drawing.
Right.
And archaeological drawing, it has its own thing.
Yeah.
But for us was mandatory, and I was thinking, how can I combine his love for the sea and the spearfishing and everything, and also his love for drawing, how we could do that and be fun.
Right. Yeah, in the beginning, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do exactly what you needed, because archaeological drawing, I mean, actually at that time, I hadn't really heard of it. I remember...
You were learning by doing.
Yeah, like the closest I saw to it was when you guys used to, I think, do some kind of, like, you know when you put paper on top of a coin and...
Yeah, exactly, and scratch it with the graphite.
Right. That was all I saw. But so I remember you gave me a test and gave me this, I think it was like an ashtray or something. I was like, okay, can you draw that in a way that it describes what it is in a correct way? And I did, I tried, and I was like, oh my God, this sucks. And actually it was okay. So then when I started working there, I went to Mozambique. It was 2005, and I had never been to Africa. To me, that was insane. It was like, what? Everything was so cool. And got to this house where you guys were already staying for years, and there was a whole team, and you showed me.
Did it frighten you in a way? Did it make you feel, oh, this is...
It wasn't frightening. It was very exotic. It was very fun. But at the same time, I had a very clear sense that I had to be useful in a team. And to me, everyone looked so experienced. They had their place. And also, all these people that I was joining this team were people that I heard of since I was a baby. Because there were people that were working with you from Cuba.
Since ever,
Right. And most people knew me, which was weird. It was like,
but they knew you since you were like
I knew
this.
since you're a baby. That was weird. Cause I was like,
and that's your teammates.
Yeah.
Your teammates.
So I was like, okay, what can I bring into this team? And all I wanted really was to dive, because that was my passion, the same as you, and spearfishing and all that stuff. But my best skill was drawing. So, and then you showed me, okay, you have to draw all these artifacts that we have. And it was hundreds of things that was like, I
would never finish this.
How would I approach this? This thing doesn't fit on the table. It was like these giant jars.
Because also I have to tell you, I did on him a little bit of a trick, because obviously I knew he wanted to dive. That was his passion as well. He wanted to be in the water. That's what is being in an adventure. But drawing, you could be in an office somewhere. But he wanted to be in the dive team and doing that. And I tried to put him some deadlines. I mean, you will dive when you finish these, let's say, 3 artifacts.
Right.
When you finish 3 artifacts, then you go diving. And as he mentioned, the house that we had rented there in Isla de Mozambique, it was a big house. It was a little bit of a spooky house in a way.
Yeah. It was like a spooky mansion type of. Everything was old. The ceiling was kind of falling.
There were plenty of shortcuts or cut corners in the house. But that also is a very challenging situation, because that's why I said we will talk in this episode about life in an expedition, because it demands of a team being together. Many of the things that we normally take for granted in our lives are not there. So plenty of moments in which we had no water.
That was the first thing that I noticed was, okay, so we have tasks. Everyone has their own objective to accomplish, and you have to kind of like ragtag and do what you can with what you have. And besides the logistics of getting water and stuff, for that specific job of drawing these artifacts, I didn't have a safe way to. There was no tools for that specific job there.
There were tools, but that we didn't have.
We
didn't have
those
them.
exist, I'm sure. I'd never seen them before, so I had to kind of improvise and make my own tools, putting regular measurement rulers and stuff that you will buy on any store, and put them together and find a way to, okay, how do I measure these artifacts in a way that will be useful later, and also not to break them, because
of course, handling archaeological artifacts is a responsibility, and it's scary. I know.
Most of them are already very fragile, or they don't have flat bases to be
stable.
Because they probably are stored in
a different way.
That was very challenging. I was always terrified of breaking one of these things. I mean, like, this thing that came out of the water is 400 years old, and I broke it. It fell off the table or something.
Sorry, Dad.
Sorry.
Bring another one.
Right. So that luckily never happened, and
You mentioned it this morning when we were talking. You started drawing with a ball pen.
Yeah.
I mean, probably every draftsman would know that this is not the right tool to start drawing.
Right. After I started looking at how professional draftsmen for archaeology, the tools they use were more precise. So micron pens and stuff like that are very thin, and you can really explain a lot with a thin line. Some of these artifacts are huge, so you will have to measure them and divide the measurement by 2, so you would fit them
to scale.
So let's say you have 100 measurements of each side of the curve, and all of those you have to divide. I actually sucked at math, so I had my calculator there, like, I hope I get this right.
So the object will not go sideways.
And figure it out. And later, the first drawings I made with ball pen, and they look great, probably artistically they look cool, but later on I changed to a micron. I guess it's like a very thin felted pen or something. I don't know exactly how it works technically, what it is structurally. And then to shade things and describe some of the reliefs of these objects, I had to do it with pointillism, so like little dots to create the sense of volume. And it was very demanding, but there was, like, after a while I could do those pretty fast.
That's the part I wanted to tell you, because I wasn't sure what can he actually do. And I was also a little bit worried that he would, like just cut corners with the drawings, but he wants to go to the water. And first time that he already like warm up and start drawing artifacts, and I came from the dives in the morning to the house and he was drawing there. And I said, had you finished any or how far you are? And he gave me like 3 artifacts. Okay, check this out. And I was like, oh, this is good. I mean, the guy can go diving, really? 3 artifacts in the morning? Because my previous experience, we had draftsmen before. And these were professional people who did that for a living. And they were taking ages to draw an artifact. And that was my standard. I said, yeah, he will take ages because I have plenty of artifacts. Yeah. I said he will never go into the water.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of those things that you are a professional and probably they studied how to do this, I don't know. So maybe they have like 100 rules to follow that I wasn't aware of. So it's one of those things, you just don't overthink it, I go straight forward and do the thing. It's not rocket science. So I managed to do them pretty fast. And I think they wouldn't know, or some people wouldn't know why we draw artifacts, since we can just take a picture of them. And it's pretty obvious once you have an artifact in your hands with a lot of information that you can see by the naked eye. But once you take a picture, for some reason it flattens out, and all of that, most of it, you really can't see it in the picture because there's so much information. There's color, different values, hues and stuff like that. And you will miss a lot if you just save a picture, which also I guess the lens of the camera deforms perspective and stuff like that.
But it also have an important thing. I was wondering myself also, why do I need to draw artifacts when we can make an everyday better quality pictures?
Right.
Because the draftsman, the archaeological illustrator, the person who put the artifacts down into a drawing, what is giving you is an interpretation of the artifact. It sees seeing in the artifact and naturally will highlight those things. Normally, these things are the ones that give you hints about how it was made or where, or if it has any inscription. But also, you guys do these cuts in the artifact that in the photos you cannot do it because you have to break the artifact. Yeah. But they measure inside. I will show you some examples, and you could see the thickness of the walls or the paste in the case of the ceramic objects. So this obviously it's an added information that the photo will not give you.
Yeah, some of these artifacts have very intricate shapes, and for whatever it's worth, you want to document as much as you can from it, because you don't know if tomorrow there's going to be an earthquake and it flattens out your lab.
Whatever you had.
Yeah, and it's lost forever.
Or normally you don't have access to the artifacts through life. No. These artifacts are given to an institution, to a government, they go to a museum, they go somewhere. If now you have a question, I would like to see that bottle again, it may be very difficult to get to that bottle again.
Yeah.
So you really have to record and to register the most you can in the moment that you have the privilege of having access to the artifact. And this is the reason why draftsmen in archaeology are as important as a good photographer and a person with a good eye. This is something that we profit also for years to come. I have made researches on shipwrecks many years after the excavation itself finished that I have no access anymore to the artifacts. So drawings and photos and logs, these are things that are really my capital. This is what you work with for as many years as you can. But what I wanted to mention in this aspect that it sounds really technical and involved, you have to take into account that in the middle of this job that he was doing, drawing these beautiful artifacts, then you have to go and take the food, the lunch for the team that was diving.
That part of the job, you would think you just have all the time.
And all the concentration.
All the focus in the world to just sit in the morning, have your coffee, sit down and draw and figure it out. But then you have so many challenges because of the location where we were at in Ilha de Mozambique, island of Mozambique, where every little basic need that a team would have, from water, fuel, food, it was not as straightforward as going to the supermarket and grabbing everything.
No. That would be dream scenario.
Right. And once you have some of the things like water, when you have it, maybe your water pump is not working because the pieces you need to fix it,
they are not around. You have to see the Tanzanians in the continent to go buy something, and it's 50 kilometers away.
Yeah, so they would call me 10 a.m. Hey, we need water. And at that point, I remember climb on the roof of this 2-story building and by hand just pull buckets and the big, I think 25-liter
canisters
and bring them all up there. also to fill the cistern of the place by hand.
It was also disgusting because the cistern was full of mud.
Oh yeah.
And every time that we put water in, that mud got,
Yeah.
that was
every
bad.
time we had to do that.
That was bad.
That was really bad. So, and then the logistics at the time, I was drawing in the morning and the team was excavating a shipwreck that was relatively close to the island. And while the cook was making lunch, I was working. And at lunchtime, I had the privilege of carrying a giant, it's food for like
8 people, 15 people.
Right. Whoever we had at the time, and it was a lot of food. I would carry that, and depending how the tide was at the time, it was or very easy or very difficult.
Or very easy or very challenging.
Yeah, because the tides down there, for some reason, the difference are really big, and it could make the difference of you have to walk through mud, 300 meters or something.
Some places more than that.
Right, with not just mud, but like there's sea life, sea urchins that are like mines,
snails,
like
clams.
Minefield of these things. And you try not to get your feet hurt and carrying all these things. Get it on a rubber boat, a Zodiac, and drive it. Which at that point I was already sometimes doing by myself, figuring out the GPS, which back then it wasn't the GPS you have on your phone.
It was not straightforward.
It's not like take
today.
me to the boat. No, we had to figure some things out and bring the food to the guys, and then join them and dive in the afternoon with them. And start learning how to, because I knew how to dive, but...
Yeah, you dove and you were very familiar with the water because of your spearfishing and everything, your apnea training.
Right, all the free diving.
You were free diving, you were familiar with the water, but what we do, and this I have explained in other episodes, that's why I don't favor divers that come with plenty of qualifications and stuff, because actually what we do is something that every diver that joins the team needs to learn, because it's a very specific job. It's something that you don't learn in a school. Well, nowadays probably yes. There should be underwater archaeology training schools, but not in the time that we were doing that, and certainly not for him.
No, not available, at least for us. But you realize really fast that diving is really not the point. Like, we're not there to dive. Diving was the tool, like how to get to the excavation. So it was the vehicle. So diving wasn't at all
an issue.
I
mean, you have to dive because that is
right.
By default you have to dive, but you have to do the things that you have to do down there.
Exactly. So in the beginning it was very distracting because I was focused on the diving.
Of course, in the sea and the sea life and everything.
And people are like, okay, that's cool, but do the thing that I need you to do.
Move these rocks, please. One of the things he have, and that it were of a lot of use for us, is that he has been describing how to draw an artifact that you have in your hands, that you have to measure and stuff. But there is also this capacity that people who are good draftsmen and are good at drawing, that they can see things in the seabed and reproduce them then in the paper.
Oh yeah.
It happened with the wood structure of the Consolación. We will talk about the Consolación in a different episode, and the marvelous job we did there. We are all very proud of it.
Yeah.
But there were also like structural parts of the ship that we could not take out of the water for him to draw them.
Right, that was very cool. Sometimes you had to draw in the water, and with whatever the tools we used were...
We had slates,
white plastic with a pencil and a little rope tied up
not to lose the pencil,
so it doesn't float away. And then you have to, I guess, balance yourself in a way that you're stable enough and measure the thing, because underwater things don't look the size they look out here. And also what you draw doesn't look the same size as when you bring it out of the water. So your drawing or whatever measurements you did, they look fine underwater. When you take them out, they're tiny. They're tiny and scribbly. I don't know exactly the reason why, but half of the time when I look at what I did, I was like, oh my God.
This is a different thing.
Yeah, I have to do it again. And I learned that really quickly, and then tried to make it very clear in the whiteboard before I took it out. And sometimes there's artifacts that are stuck to a concretion or very fragile or too big, and you have to measure it underwater. And
it's like drawing, for instance, the cannons. We don't take the cannons out. We only take out, let's say, the cannons that can help you in your research. I have mentioned the bronze cannons that are so full of beautiful marks and information. But the iron cannons, you don't do that. The anchors, you don't do that. So you have to, aside of the photograph, you have to see if through the drawing you can also get information out of them. And this is an object, you not take it out of the water, you cannot even move it. So you have to draw it in the way it is.
Yeah, we have some weird cannons in that shipwreck specifically because remember those that got stuck together?
They were stuck together.
Right, there was like a column of cannons stuck one on top of the other, laying down horizontally, and they were stuck like that because they were actually buried under the ballast stone.
Yeah.
And once we removed the ballast stones, they kind of stayed.
They stay like this because they got concreted together in that way. I have a beautiful photo. I will put a photo if it's not there already. But I put a photo of the cannon standing up and you standing by the side of the cannon so you could see. And I think I mark the original level of the ballast stones, so you see the amount of ballast stones we have to remove there.
Yeah, there was a lot of removing rocks from A to B, for sure.
It was like not the most sexy archaeological work people can imagine.
No, and these long period excavations, I don't know how many months, but because the shipwreck was very shallow, so our air would last forever. It was really, at some point, it was like, okay, how long can you stay cold? Because at the third or second dive of the day, you would start feeling like, okay, I can't think. I'm just trying to be awake.
I have mentioned that before also because people immediately think we are talking about Mozambique. It's tropical. You have normally reasonably warm waters. You are not in Europe. But when you're diving every day, let's say 3 dives, as he mentioned, each of the dives, it could be about 2 hours because the wreck is shallow. Our bottles were big bottles, 16 liters, I think they were. Your dives could be very long. And the third dive in the day, doesn't matter how warm the water is, you are already drained out of your heat, your body heat is gone.
Yeah. My first dive, when I started doing them in the morning, all day there, so I could go to the morning dives. And I remember my first dive, I recorded one that was 3 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. Because I'm a small guy.
It's like the entire morning.
Yeah, I was young, I guess my cardio, so my bottle would last.
Yeah, I remember that the team members were mad at you. Because you were setting a standard that they were, most of them my age, so we are obviously quite some years apart. And they were like, ask Alejandrito to go out of the water, man. The guy is
just, lunch, I don't know.
we want to have lunch and the guy is still down.
Yeah. No, there was a, I don't know if we're going to keep this story in the video, but there was a there was a time where I got really distracted underwater, and all the dredging equipment to remove sand, it's attached to a water pump that is floating on the surface on top of a Zodiac, a rubber boat. And after day, you have to unattach it, leave it down there, and bring the water pump to the boat, to the platform. And I forgot to untie the hose, and I remember the boat wasn't moving. You were waiting for us. It was like, and I think I dragged the whole dredging system for maybe 10 meters. And I wanted the sea to swallow me because I was so embarrassed. And it was a rookie mistake, but I still remember your face. You were like,
about now, why he did that? Well, okay, these are things that happen, these kind of things, but imagine also when we are talking about the daily, in an expedition, in certain places which are isolated and you don't have this logistical backup. For instance, the weights you use to dive, the lead weights that everyone knows, weight belt.
The weight belt, yeah.
The weight belt that you use, but okay, the weights themselves, these are things which are first extremely necessary because you use it for many things, not only for diving, to mark a place with a buoy, to put the plastic boxes to make them heavy so they stay with you.
Everything you want to stay in
place. To ballast it, you use these lead weights.
Yeah.
But because of that reason, they get lost very easily as well. Yeah. You drop a buoy with a line with this lead weight in a place to mark the place, but then it comes a little bit of a rough weather, the rope will snap, and then you lose that weight. It will be very difficult to find it again. So every time, lead weights are something that you have to either buy or produce. Buying lead weights is complicated because normally you have to ask, in case of Mozambique, you have to buy them in South Africa, at least in that moment. Maybe today is totally different and you have all these supplies there, but for us, you was buy them in South Africa or in Europe. Then to transport them to Mozambique, they are very heavy.
They're heavy.
Yeah, you pay extra luggage in a plane.
And we need many.
Plenty of them.
Right, it's now 5 weights.
So we decide to do our own lead weights, and I give Alejandrito that marvelous job.
My God, that was very funny because I heard of this before. I heard that people had melted their own weights before, but I'd never even seen it. And we had the
mold.
The mold. Mm-hmm. And we had lead, so...
Yeah, but we had lead, no. We had plenty of old batteries from the ship.
Right.
You know that they have lead inside, at least the old batteries, they had lead inside.
Yeah,
and I said, okay, guys, you take those batteries, take the lead out. These batteries has acid.
Well, taking the lead out of a battery, it's really hard.
Of course, it doesn't meant to be taken out.
It has acid. You have to empty it somehow safely. Don't kill all the marine life next to you.
Or yourself.
Right. And then clean it with water. Start with a chisel and a hammer. Take all the lead out. And with a chisel and a hammer, also break the battery open because they're not made to be opened by
No, they are not
anyone.
They are not openable.
No. I'm sure they have machines to do that, but with a chisel and a hammer, it takes time. And there are plenty of batteries, so we would spend a day breaking batteries apart, and then once we collect all this lead, now how to melt it? Because what do you call this machine that we use?
Furnace?
A furnace.
A furnace.
So it was this small furnace that they had.
Yeah, but a very artisanal one.
Yeah, it was like a thing from the colony, from probably the Portuguese, or I don't know.
Probably.
I'd never seen them.
Probably 19th century or something.
Yeah, I'd never used one. It looked very cool. To me, it looked like one of the things you used to pull water out of the well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it wasn't that. It was a furnace. So first I added charcoal, regular charcoal, and I was like, okay, let's heat it up, and and then you have to. It was a wheel. You had to
yeah, because you have to inject air. Oxygen.
You had to turn a wheel. It made a very loud noise, and it burnt all the charcoal in 5 minutes, and the lead was just there. Barely.
It didn't melt.
Not at all. So we figured out with mineral charcoal would probably work better, and it did. But that realization, a whole morning under the sun, because there was no an overgrown grass, because this is in the middle of abandoned
abandoned
harbor.
Backyard.
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. We spent a few days melting weights, and they look they look like
they look nice.
They look nice. They look like silver.
Yeah, exactly. The recently made lead weights still shiny. It doesn't get dull yet until you put it in the water.
Yeah.
And I was very proud of our lead weights, even if I didn't work on that. Were them and you and Ramiro and I don't remember who else.
I took pictures of it. We were wearing, because we didn't even know, is this toxic?
Imagine lead.
I heard lead is toxic. I don't know. So I was wearing a regular cloth over my mouth, I'm sure. That didn't do anything.
Unfortunately, this video we are making now, I'm traveling with him in his house in Dallas, and Maria is not with us. But Maria would be laughing her guts out because I know how much fun she made with all these crazy stories, because of course she's much younger than us and she understands the safety of the work in a different way.
Hi, Editing Maria here. Yes, Dad, you're right. And I think, I understand the safety of work a little bit differently than you guys did back then. But it's fine. We all have had the opportunity to learn a little bit from it, I think.
For us was we need to make lead, we made lead. And watch out, don't burn yourself, that's all.
Right. That was after dealing with battery acid. And
exactly. Yeah, a very fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, these things that we have mentioned in this episode, these are things that make our expeditions so, I would say, nice. Because yes, they are challenging. On top of it, we have the archaeological work to do and the diving and everything, okay? Dealing with the weather, when the weather is not good and stuff. But just to be there, just to be able to operate, to be operative, you have to be creative. And if you don't have that mind, someone in your team will.
Yeah, that is interesting how sometimes the person that you less expected has
It will come up with the idea.
Yeah, have the idea and it works. We had some brainstorming sometimes in the...
Of course.
Lunch, and everyone is like, which knot are we going to do to lift the thing without everything breaking apart? And also, before every dive, everything needed planning.
Of course, because as an operation, it's very fragile.
Right.
You remember when every time that we needed to refuel the boat.
Every time we needed to refuel the boat, depending on where we were anchored, it would change. And
it will come this truck with the fuel, then drop it in canisters or drums.
Yes.
Then take those drums with that stupid crane, remember that crane in
and put
Capitania?
it on a floating wooden platform.
Barge or,
Right.
or
Right.
a floating platform of wood we made.
Right. And each time we do this, I'm sure there are loading dock guys that we do this every day. We're a bunch of guys that some have done it, some just arrived. And suddenly they're like, oh, carry this 200-liter drum full of diesel fuel and put them all on a floating square. And if that thing
flips,
yeah,
that would be a big deal because we didn't have the funds to buy fuel again. That fuel was precious.
Yeah, all that fuel in the water.
No, that would kill us, man.
Right,
We'll be in the news.
No. So yeah, and then refuel the ship by hand, basically.
Yeah,
and
with the hose.
It would take a couple days. 3 days. Depending on how hard the conditions were, and you will end up just full of diesel fuel. I remember in my hair everywhere.
Yeah, you like it or not, you get all splashed and
for days,
of course, smelling like fuel.
Yeah. There I learned diesel fuel. You could have a cigarette and not blow up, like with gasoline.
The entire island.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see people smoking really close to the things. And I'm like, is this safe?
But that's what I mentioned before. But we have plenty of anecdotes. We could be here for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that the operation itself, your expedition itself, depends a lot in the teamwork because of this. Because as he mentioned, and I have mentioned also, there is someone in the team which will have the solution or the best solution among everyone. So if you approach these expeditions as a very strict line of command, you have very little chances to succeed because you really need to listen to everyone, involve everyone in each decision because yes, nobody knows everything, but the group of people would know a lot.
Yes, and you have to be flexible in so many ways because it's one of those, in these places, there is no plan B on someone's going to come save you.
You have no help.
No, whatever happens, you have to
deal with it.
Deal with it yourself. We dive and we excavate, but we're not experts on all the 100 extra things, so we would come up with funny
solutions that I'm sure some guys will try to put as many images as I can, and many of you that will have experience in each of these fields would say, hey guys, but you found the worst solution.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, but at least was a solution.
Yeah, we did it probably.
And we kept on working because again, this is the combination of a very focus-driven work like the archaeological study of something and try to keep your expedition working, which is a completely different thing, and it's made by the same people.
Right.
The same us. There is nobody else to help us.
There is no IT team or a team that is the engineer guys that will, behind the scenes, make sure that you're comfortable
make
to do
it
your
work.
work. Yeah, you do everything. But that was what made it really fun and
rewarding.
Rewarding.
It is rewarding.
It was very rewarding. Every day was like, wow, today I did something that
I did this.
I never seen before, and it was so cool. And that happened all the time.
Yeah, because it's every day that you have to, I mean, in the meantime, if you're surviving from malaria, you are walking in this mud that he already described, sometimes carrying heavy stuff like an outboard engine.
Like an outboard engine.
Like your dive gear.
Remember once we had to carry the battery of the Zanj, the boat?
Expedition boat.
Right, it was a gigantic battery.
Man, that's big. That was big.
It was 3 of us with sticks on our shoulder. It looked like some tribal, or when we had to move a bronze cannon from one spot to the other, and without a crane, we had those.
Yeah, this tripod.
Like tripod cranes with a chain and a.
I can't remember the name of that. This is a little winch that is it's pulled with a chain. That it has a certain name, but I can't remember.
Right, but you had to set it up.
That this thing doesn't fall down with a cannon.
Yeah, so you could move the cannon a little bit and then set it up again and move it
another bit.
Right.
Yeah.
That was very interesting because I didn't know that tool existed, and you can do so much with it. I mean, it's like a portable crane.
Well, we also had in our team some guys that were really brilliant with the mechanical and physics and stuff. I mean, they came up with plenty of these solutions like, because of the lever and we put it here and the center should be there.
Right, you divide the force by whatever, I don't know.
Me neither.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I hope you get this far into the video because it's like the backstage of the archaeological expedition or the adventures that everyone likes and want to see or want to be part. But you have to also take into account that for that to happen, you have to do it all by yourself. That's why it's so important people in the team who are committed, that they cannot come with this idea of, no, I'm sorry, I'm a diver, I don't do anything else. This is something I'm really glad that Alex has helped me in explaining that, because I mean, it's another point of view. He arrived there very young, so he experienced all this in a very early age.
Yeah, like I said, that was like my college. The way I feel about it, because young adult and have to figure it out and form yourself in this dynamic.
And with a bunch of weird teammates.
A bunch of weird guys. It's a bunch of pirates. a bunch of guys coming from all kinds of places and all ages. And you end up like loving everybody and
it becomes like a little bit like a family because of living so much hardship together.
You start like knowing everyone's backstory and a lot of brotherhood in a way. You create very long-lasting friendships. It's an incredible experience that I will never forget, or to me it was amazing. I reference it a lot in my daily life.
And for me it was amazing working with you. I actually miss it. We may do something in the future.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Do something in the future.
One last gig, something. I think that would be amazing.
Lovely, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you guys, if you like the video, please leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it, share it with someone that you think it would be interesting for them, and let's keep on diving.